Welcome back, students who are taking financial accounting, and in this series of videos we are working on the assigned homework problems from the digital study guide for Chapter 11, the Group B problems. Note, accounting is about understanding the concepts and then applying that understanding to the situation at hand. If you get the application aspect wrong, that is one thing and is easily remedied by watching someone else work the problem. However, if you don't understand the concepts, that is a whole other thing. Watching a problem worked out will not help if you don't understand the underlying concepts. Go back and study the text material again and watch the theory videos. If you still don't understand the concepts, then either email or telephone an instructor to get help with that understanding. Right, but before I go on, these here problems are basically about creating the statement of cash flows. And so I'll just, as an example here, it's saying prepare a statement of cash flows using the indirect method. Now, the amount of time to do this is, they put 20 to 25 minutes, okay? And if you watch the theory videos, you saw that when I created a statement of cash flow, I had said, hey, these are my working papers. I'm taking all kinds of shortcuts. I am, abbreviating. I'm not so much worried about formatting, like for example, I'm not putting heading on the statement of cash flows, I'm not putting dollar signs, this type of thing. And, I said that what you were looking at were my working papers, as if I was doing the work on the side. But now, those working papers are for me only. If I were to give the a statement of cash flows to someone else, I would take my working papers and I would type them up in a Microsoft Word or some kind of word processor and make the statements conform to what they're supposed to, meeting all of the formatting requirements, which means anything as far as financial statements are concerned. It's a professional paper, right? Underlines, double underlines, you write the whole word out, no abbreviations, capitalization, the right dates, the right indentations, all that kind of stuff that you learn from the beginning of this here subject in financial accounting. But the issue was when I was creating it, it looked real sloppy, okay? And therefore, because I'm trying to, I have a time limitation here. I can't make it perfect, and I can't be spending a half an hour on each problem here when it's just being replicated in the solution manual. So what I've done here is, for these problems, I've actually copied and included on the slide the actual solution. All right. Now, granted, I don't necessarily always agree with the solutions. Like, for example, in doing mathematical calculations, I would use additional columns. So generally in the statement of cash flows, I would end up using 3 columns instead of 2. But there's nothing wrong with the way those financial statements look when you're looking at the solution. So here, what I'm going to do is, I have the problem, like here, 11-37, and I'll just quickly go over it, but I'll provide the solution. Now, I'll make comments on the solution, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time. Like if I find where there's a mathematical calculation that I need to bring up or whatever have you, I'll do that, all right? But I'm not going to be covering a lot of, I'm not going to spend a half an hour, just rewriting the same exact thing. You can get that from the solution. You should do it as a homework problem so that you're accustomed to doing it. But I need to cut down on the amount of time I'm spending here. So, and then if you have any additional questions, like you're not sure about something, then shoot an email or telephone and speak with an instructor, and we'll help clarify any issues that you might have. Okay. So, with that said, and I'm saying this here at the beginning of this problem, but I'm probably going to do the same things for the additional videos, giving you this here warning. And I'm going to try to combine more than one problem together, so there's not that many, more than one problem in a video, so that there's not that many videos to watch, because again, it's just a matter of understanding what you're putting down and then going just through the process. The real difficulty comes in doing the math. All right, so it says here, Carlson Corporation accounts assembled the following data for the year ended December 31st, 2014. All right, so it has current assets, current liabilities, and then all of these here activities. Okay, and it says prepare Carlson Corporation's statement of cash flows using the indirect method to report operating income, list non-cash investing and financing activities on the accompanying schedule. Right? So these are all activities, and you're being given data for your current assets and your current liabilities, having the year end for 2013 and 2014, because you'll need that information in order to generate the appropriate amounts for the activities. Okay. When we look at the solution here, remember, and I'm just gonna, like I said, here's all the information, okay? And you should be gleaning this from the data on the previous page. When I go to create the statement of cash flow, number one, I create the heading. And the important thing is that the heading date, you create the heading date the same way you do for an income statement or statement of cash flow. Then what I do is I actually start to set up in a structure, and you saw me do that on the, in the theory video, using my working papers. One, I put cash flows from operating activities. Then two, I put cash flows from investing activities. Three, I put net flows from financing activities. And four, I'll write a net increase in cash, but realize that this could be a net decrease in cash. Okay, and then once I've got those sections set up like that, now I'm going to go in and flesh out each particular section, because remember, we're looking at the activities that affect operating, investing, and financing. So when it comes to the indirect method, we look at our income, our net income. So I pull that information from my, my financial statements, my data here. Okay, and they're giving you this here data like this, giving you information on current assets, current liabilities, and then these various transactions. But reality, you're going to have a balance sheet, and you're going to have an income statement, and you're going to have to glean the information from those two statements. So it all depends upon how this information is presented. But the fact of the matter is that if I'm looking here and I know that in setting up my section I should have my net income, they're telling you the net income, right, is $57,300 here. Okay, reality is I would have to come over here to my income statement and find that information. Okay, so that's kind of like what you're doing here is you're just going to go down and you put in your net income, all right, because that's how we start our indirect method. And then I write in this here section here, adjustments to reconcile net income to net cash provided by operating activities. This is standard text that you would put on your statement of cash flows. Okay, and then you go down and you look at all your different activities and see which ones apply to your particular set of financial statements. Okay. In doing many of these problems, you become, and doing it in this process, you become accustomed to what to be looking at. And remember, you have a template there in the textbook, or you saw it in the theory videos with a variety of activities. Yeah, you kind of like follow it down in a checklist sort of fashion, but the whole thing to remember is that you have to think about the effects on cash. Okay, like for example, depreciation expense, right? Well, when depreciation expense is an adjustment at the end of the accounting period, and it doesn't affect cash. It affects your net income, okay, and it decreases your net income, so it was taken out. So when I put depreciation expense in, put it in as my activity, when I put it in, I'm going to add that back in because I had subtracted it out. It doesn't affect my cash, right? So I add that in. And you have to go down in like the loss on sale of equipment, okay? Well, if I have a loss on the sale, what is the effect on cash? That's an increase in I have to increase my cash. If I have an increase in accounts receivable, and notice that this is a negative 4,900, right? Notice back here on the data, I have accounts receivable here. Well, what's the difference between these two numbers? All right, the 4,900. And from 2013 to 2014, it increased by 4,900. Right? So if it increased by 4,900, that means the effect on my cash is a negative 4,900. All right. So just bear in mind what you're looking at. To a certain extent, you can almost memorize this stuff, but that's a lot of memorization. I find it's easier to just think in terms of the concept and the effect on the concept. Like for example, if I have a decrease in my inventory, that means I increased my cash because I sold my inventory, right? So it's a plus 3,200. Right? So that's kind of like what you're doing, all right, as you go down through the different activities, and you'll go down through the activities for investing activities, and then also your financing activities. And when you do all of the math, you end up with your net increase in cash, right? Then you take your beginning balance, right, and you add those two together to find out what your cash balance should be of $82,600 on December 13th, 2014. Now, non-cash investing and financing activities, you had a retirement of a bond payable by issuing common stock for $66,000. All right, so out of this information here, retirement of a bond payable right there, right? That is a non-cash activity, all right? And you would put that in an accompanying schedule. So, that's what your solution should look like when you're done. But just follow the process, and everything, it should look like that. If you have any questions, feel free to telephone or contact an instructor. So with that said, let's move on to 11-38. Right? And notice that this here is also another half an hour, but I'm at already 12 minutes. So this kind of, after my spiel, my explanation only took about 7 minutes. All right, so I decided I'm going to add this one in. All right, so prepare, again, a statement of cash flows using the indirect method. And again, it's just a matter of, how the data is presented. Okay. It says prepare the statement of cash flows using the indirect method to report cash flows from operating activities. And then it says evaluate the cash flows from the year. Mention all three categories of cash flows and give the reasons for your evaluation. All right, so here's the solution. All right, again, I create the heading with the proper date. I set up the operating, the investing, and the financing activities, and then I put my net increase or decrease in my cash. Right. Then I'll go back and I'll look for my net income, and then I'll write in this here section. Notice that was the same exact terminology as I used in the previous problem. Then I go down through all of my activities that pertain to operating activities and see which one applies. And I'm making sure I'm thinking about whether that's an increase or a decrease in my cash, and create it appropriately. Make sure you go through this mental process here, okay? Because if not, you're going to come across an operating activity that is not on your checklist, and you're going to be going, well, how do I make this? Okay, it's sort of like, not being able to make a journal entry that you've never seen before. If you don't have a mental process that you go through to do it, you're not going to be able to make a journal entry that you've never seen before. You're not going to find it in a book. Well, you're going to have activities that you're not going to find in the book, right? So go through the mental process. Then you go down through your investing activities, your financing activities, do the math. Okay, notice that this is all rote. It's all the same thing. It's just a matter of looking through the different activities and making those determinations. Then you take your ending balance from the previous year in order to figure out your change in your cash balance. Okay. All right, so that's 38. Again, if you're stuck on the theory aspect of it, go back and watch the theory videos, and I highly recommend that you do the short exercises for this chapter and watch the videos that I did on the short exercises, because that kind of one exercise after another went step by step in the creating the process that you should go through in order to do this statement of cash flows. When the exercises for this here chapter kind of went through doing the math, how to calculate the numbers that you put on your statement of cash flows. And this particular, these problems are more about, generating the entire statement of cash flow itself. Right? Now, before I leave this video, I realize that I have to do the explanation for evaluating the cash flows for the year for all three categories and give the reason for your evaluation. Now, the solution says the company's operation provided net cash flow. Let me erase all of this here first, and then I'll highlight what the solution is saying and give my comments on it. Okay, so it says it has for operating activities, the net cash flow is $105,300. This amount exceeds net income. Right? Here's your net income. So that exceeds the net income as it should due to the adding back of the depreciation. Right? Remember, here's my net income. I add back in the depreciation. So therefore, this number should be theoretically greater than that number. In addition, the majority of the cash flow comes from its operations, as it should in a successful business. Meaning, if you're a you're going to be a successful business. You're going to be generating cash. It used negative cash flows of $128,600 for investing activities. However, this indicates this company is investing its cash in long-term assets of the business. Right? That's part of the investing activities. If you look through the theory videos, you see that you do look at the investing in long-term purchases like equipment, building, things like this, as far as the upkeep and running of the business is concerned. And then for the financing activities of $33,000, the company raised additional capital by issuing common stock, which you can look at it here. They issued common stock, and they also proceeds from the issuance of a long-term note payable. So they took on additional loan of a note payable in order to get more cash, and they also paid out dividends. All right. So the taking on the note payable, which is not a smart thing to do. Well, the issuance of common stock, getting that money, and then also taking on a note payable, those are activities that, it all depends upon the situation as to whether you would want to do that. But maybe they wanted, the additional stock, the additional cash, in order to help pay for the acquisition of the equipment and buildings. And of course, always paying dividends to your shareholders makes them happy. So, if you have the additional cash available, you want to look at from a business perspective, you want to look at, the needs of the company. And then if you have additional cash, you want to think about, rewarding or giving back to the shareholders so that they're not selling off, their stock. They're staying invested in the company, because if they want their, if they're not going to be investing in the company, then you have a difficult time generating even more cash when you need big projects, and that's what you do with common stock. All right, so that's it for this exercise, this problem. And again, if you don't understand something, I highly recommend that you watch the theory videos, work through the short exercise problems to get an understanding of the process on how to, each exercise went one step further in how to create the statement of cash flows, and then doing the exercises themselves helped in learning how to do, you know, the mathematical calculations. And then of course here your problems are more about, you know, how to generate the statement of cash flows. So if you don't understand something, rewatch those videos. And if you're still not getting it, then definitely call and speak with an instructor. All right, so I'll see you in the next video.